A lot of lightning probably from our storm team tower camera in Hamilton. But we're going to be watching the line that's right now in Mississippi that'll be moving this way. And Sarah Canty and Dr. Tim Coleman will kind of break down what we expect to happen here in the next couple of hours here in just 1 second. But all of this still west of our area. We're going to watch it move to the east progressively through the rest of the morning. And hopefully by the time we get to later on, say 8, 9 o'clock, everything should be done. But this strongest part of the storm that we're watching now, with a lot of lightning with it, near Fulton, Bexar, and then Hamilton. So in the next half an hour, we could see this part of the storm move closer to areas that we're a little bit more concerned about. Folks in Hamilton, Hackleburg, and Phil Campbell after that. So what we're going to do right now, show you the entirety of the tornado watch. And that watch goes until 6 o'clock this morning. And it only goes for a handful of our counties: Coleman, Blount County, Marion and Winston County, Walker, Fayette, and also Lamar County, like we said, till 6 a.m. There is some indication that we might have this watch extended. That could include a few more counties in our viewing area. And to tell you why is Storm Team Meteorologist Sarah Canty and Dr. Tim Coleman over at the Storm Team Weather Center. Guys, what have you seen? What have you been looking at here the last few minutes? Yeah, Nate, so we're starting to watch these thunderstorms back through Mississippi, and you were mentioning the possibility for the tornado watch to be extended, and that's possible mainly a little bit farther south, so possibly including Tuscaloosa County and Pickens County, and right along that I-20 corridor, because that's where these storms are moving right now. Probably Jefferson County, too. Exactly, possibly even Jefferson County, because these storms that are moving from Mississippi right now are encountering a very unstable air mass. And we're starting to see that with even a few tornado warnings. We had one tornado warning popping up just north and east of Yazoo City in Mississippi. So we're watching these thunderstorms very closely as they start to track towards a very unstable air mass. Yeah, and Sarah, I'm looking at the meso-analyses right now, which really tell us what's going on in the atmosphere out ahead of these storms. And these storms are the ones that we were talking about on the 10 o'clock news. We were expecting this warm, humid air to move into Alabama over, in the period between, say, 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. It has indeed started to happen. Right now I'm looking at instability parameters, which is the ability, or that warm, humid air for thunderstorms to rise, and it's actually a maximum right now extending from around Coleman down towards Jasper and then Moundville and Tuscaloosa. So these storms are actually moving into an environment, Sarah, that is more unstable than what they're in now. So potentially these storms could actually intensify a little bit over the next couple of hours. The thing that's competing against that is the other thing you need for storm rotation is wind shear, and the strongest wind shear is by far up in northern Alabama, where the tornado watch is currently in effect. But we have enough wind shear here in central Alabama along I-20, say counties like Pickens, Tuscaloosa, Jefferson, and Walker. We have enough instability here to go along with that wind shear that we could even see a couple of tornadoes in this area, Sarah. Yeah, and looking at just the 3D view of these storms, what we've been noticing throughout the evening is these are not extremely high topping storms. We've had really low cloud bases and rotation near the surface. So that's why we've seen these tornado warnings almost pop out of nowhere, because these are not like vigorously high updrafts into the atmosphere. These are pretty low storms where they're rotating near the surface, and that's why we have that tornado threat there, and also just concerning there. And just looking at our wind speeds across central Alabama, if you walk outside right now through Jefferson County, if you're out, it is very windy outside. This is all warm, unstable air pushing up ahead of the front. Wind speeds sustained at 17 miles per hour. So as this area gets closer, this line moves closer, it's entering a very unstable air mass. And notice those winds are all out of the south, so they're transporting this extremely warm air from the south. Our dew point here, taking a look really quickly, our dew point here is already 68 here at the TV station, and it's 70 down in Clanton. So we'll have some very unstable air moving in here, and so it should sustain these storms for at least another 2 or 3 hours. Nate? Yes, indeed. Yeah, so we'll be watching the line, and we need everything to kind of line up. The instability, the shear, all the different parameters to line up, and that's when we start to see severe thunderstorms and possibly tornado warnings pop up. But just as a recap, tornado watch goes until 6 o'clock for our northern and western counties. We still haven't seen the strongest of the storms just yet, but of course, that is still to come later on this morning. Stay with us all morning long. We'll be doing Facebook Lives. We'll be cutting into programming to let you know the very latest on this developing severe weather situation. Hopefully, we won't have to cut in too much, but we will. If storms break out, we will break into coverage and let you guys know. We will send you back to programming right now. It's top of the hour, 1 o'clock, another update live from CBS 42.
This has been a severe weather alert from the CBS 42 Storm Team.
Now you can see us. Fantastic. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mickey. I appreciate that so much. So we're here doing a little Facebook Live. You just saw our cut-in live on CBS 42. We've got the whole CBS 42 Storm team here. Sarah Canty. We've got Dr. Tim Coleman, Taylor Plott, taking care of our social media and other jobs that we're going to be tasking him with. Taylor, it's baptism by fire, my friend.
There you go.
Here we go. So I guess just of a note, the strongest storms have stayed to our north so far, and also to our west, and that's where the enhanced risk was from the Storm Prediction Center that they put out. So at least that's good news, but we still have this line that's moving through, screaming through Mississippi that will impact our area most likely here in the next hour to 2 hours. And it's really what's down south, Sarah. Let's point at that tornado warning here just south of Eupora. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Anyone? Eupora. Just west, or just east, I should say, of I-55 and along Highway 82 there. And this cluster of storms has shown that it's starting to get its act together a little bit. You can see the, well, you
Sorry.
could. Yeah, that's okay. You're all right. We were able to see a little bit of some of the dynamics that we were looking at offline. That it's kind of the scientific mumbo jumbo, but it looks pretty good to see these storms not enhance, but at least keep their strength as they move in to central Alabama. So that'll be something we watch really, really closely. But as of right now, no warnings so far in Alabama. We do have the one watch, the tornado watch that goes until 6 o'clock, and that is for our counties basically north and west. So Marion, Winston, Lamar, Fayette, Walker, Cullman, and Blount County, and that's until 6 o'clock. And then the rest of the tornado watches are well off to our north, and we've got plenty of warnings up there too, from basically northwest Alabama all the way into Tennessee. You see the line of very strong storms basically from just north of Marion County through Florence, Russellville. You see these big severe thunderstorm warnings cover a large area there in northwest Alabama. Let's send it over to the Weather Center. We've got Sarah Canty, we've got Dr. Tim Coleman. What have you guys seen? I know you guys are looking at a lot of different data. You're looking at some of the current stuff and also some of the forecast models. What are you guys looking at right now?
So we are starting to see lightning already start to track into Marion County. So you may be seeing a few lightning strikes in Hamilton right now, out ahead of that main line that is starting to track into Marion County over the next, I would say, hour, as this is mainly moving north and east of Hamilton right now, but you can see that line inching closer and closer. And what we've seen, we're also keeping a close eye down to our south and west through Mississippi, where we do have that tornado warning, because these more individual cells, more breaking away from that main line there, they're going to be rushing into a very unstable air mass in our westernmost counties, so including Pickens, possibly even Tuscaloosa counties. That's where we could see these storms continue to strengthen, because it's a pretty soupy air mass there.
It is, and the farther east these storms go, Sarah, the more unstable the air gets. The most unstable air basically extends from about Jasper to Tuscaloosa to Greene County, around Utah. Can we go to the velocity on the GWX radar? I was just checking that out over here, and there is a very impressive, with that storm near Eupora, there's a right there, yeah. There's a very impressive rotational signature on there. You know, these storms are moving so fast that when we look at absolute velocity like this, sometimes it washes out just a tad, but that is a big difference in velocity between the right side of the storm and the left side of the storm. And I think that's coming from Jackson, right? Yeah, that's Jackson. So we're seeing that rotation both from the Columbus Air Force radar and from Jackson.
Unfortunately, it's far away from both of them.
It is. It's high level.
Yeah. There you go.
But you know, with that type of rotation, and then with the reflectivity signature we see with a little inflow notch, wouldn't be surprising to see potential tornado on that. And real quickly, I'm going to check the. I'm going to check to see if there is a debris signature with that storm. We saw that earlier with one of the storms that was producing a tornado in Mississippi.
Yeah, and let's go over timing real quick, because in northwest Alabama, we're going to see this continue to move through Marion County within the next hour, hour and a half, through Walker County, most likely between about 3 and 5 a.m., then through the Birmingham metro, I would say between 4 a.m. and possibly even as late as 6 a.m. But this is moving fairly quickly. So this is going to be in and out by the time we get to 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. Looking at the latest model data, which this updates every hour, so this is kind of our latest gauge on the timing. Notice this line will move through between 3 and 5 a.m. through Birmingham, and then push down to the south and east by around 7 a.m. So we'll be most likely done with this by the time we hit around 8 o'clock in the morning.
And it's kind of important to note, Sarah, that once that line basically moves south of I-20 and 59, it breaks up pretty good, and there's just not a whole lot of unstable air down there. And the Storm Prediction Center put out, oh, sorry, I've got my disembodied hand here. They put out their enhanced risk north and west, and basically everything south of I-20 and 59 was under just a marginal risk. Now, it's still a risk, but it's a much lower risk than the other parts of central Alabama, basically everybody north and west of I-20 and 59. So this line's moving pretty good, and like Sarah said, it's going to move very progressively through central Alabama once it does finally make it here. We did have a tornado warning in Tupelo just about, half an hour, 45 minutes ago, and if you go on our social media, I shared it, Taylor Plott shared it. It's a picture of a mailbox that goes through a window, and what looks like a child's room. So that tornado, if it was, most likely did a little bit of damage there in Tupelo, but that's basically what you have. That's why you want to get into interior parts of your home away from windows and doors. That's a perfect example of some flying debris that if somebody was in that room, could have been a very dangerous situation. So that's why we preach interior levels of your home away from windows and doors once those tornado warnings are issued. But right now, no warnings just yet in central Alabama. All the warnings are to our north or to our west, and we're going to watch this line continue to move south. Haley, do we have any questions? Anybody out there wondering what's going on this evening?
Yeah, Elizabeth is wondering about Hamilton. Cindy is worried about Morris. Everyone else is saying good job, hello, and good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Just after
Is
midnight.
It morning?
Yeah, just barely, just barely. So, folks in Hamilton, you're about to get the strongest part of this line. Now, it looks like the storms are going to stay to your north. At least the biggest batch of lightning at least will. But these storms are going to pack a punch. You're going to see some wind out of these. I don't want to say that you're going to be out of the woods as far as a tornado risk, but this area of storms hasn't really produced many since about an hour or so ago, so that's at least some good news. But you're in the spot. You're in a tornado watch, which means conditions are favorable for tornadoes to form. We just need the storms to get elevated and storms to fire up, and that's when we could have these tornadoes that come. And actually, I kind of misspoke there. We don't really have to have these storms elevated. These are kind of low-topped storms. They're not very high in the sky. They're not really low-top supercells, which that I've actually seen in person do a lot of damage. But these are they're not your classic big towering, 40, 50,000 foot thunderstorms. These storms are about 20, 30,000, or 10, 20,000 feet in the sky. So a little bit different than your normal supercell thunderstorm that will produce a tornado, Tim.
And that's more typical of the fall. I mean, this is one of those what we call high shear, low cape environments. Cape being instability, lots of wind shear, not as much cape as we have in say April or May when we have some of the big tornado outbreaks. But again, for April, the instability or the cape values over central Alabama, I would say are impressive. Between 1,000 and 1,500, that's enough to keep these storms going. And we did just get a note that there was some damage in Lauderdale County. That's up in northwest Alabama, just west of Florence. Some camper trailers were blown over on Highway 157 up there.
There you go.
Not sure if that's a tornado or just straight line winds yet.
And we've got both. We've got severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings up there, so it could be one of each.
We do, and I mean, and that's the thing, really. If these winds hit you 70, 80 miles per hour, it doesn't matter if they're in a straight line or if they're going in a circle. you know, so far we haven't heard of any significant tornado damage in the last 3 or 4 hours. I think the most significant was in Tupelo. That storm had a debris signature on radar. But other than that, you know, the storms are moving into an unstable environment. And honestly, Sarah, if we could back the radar out just a tad, you know, the storms that I'm most concerned about is that southern line is kind of broken off from the northern one that's really started forming it, doing its own thing out ahead of it. I think we need to really keep an eye on that when it's got 1 tornado warning and then some additional severe thunderstorm warnings on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's zoom in on that. And if you could pop me back up on the screen, that'd be great. Appreciate it. So this is what, oh, look at that funky little notch there. I like that. I like when they get a little funky with the tornado warnings when they start to draw them. But yeah, this is what we're talking about. Just south of Eupora, tons of lightning with this storm. French Camp and Ackerman, if you're familiar with those places. I'm sure you are, waking up with us early this morning. But that's where the tornado warning is. And it's tough to see kind of the spots in between 2 different radar sites. You don't really get that great of a picture of it, but enough rotation, enough spin in the atmosphere, and this storm strong enough to produce most likely a tornado that's been indicated by radar. And like Dr. Tim said, this storm's kind of moving to the right. It's kind of doing its own thing. It's in its own atmosphere, but it's moving in to a very unstable part of Mississippi and central Alabama once it makes it through. So even the counties that aren't in this tornado watch, we were talking about this on air, there's a possibility that this watch does get extended to possibly include portions of our southwestern viewing area and maybe even Jefferson County later on this morning. So that's going to be something we watch very, very closely throughout the rest of the morning. So really, basically, what Sarah talked about, the timing of this for Northwest Alabama, everybody north and west of I-20 and 59 in the next 3 hours between now and say 3 a.m. and then by 3 to 4 to 5, moving through the I-20-59 corridor and points to the east, and then the line really starts to fizzle out by the time it gets to our southeastern counties. So good news there. And like we said, Election Day should be fine. It should be absolutely perfect after these storms move out. A really nice day to get out and vote. So that's obviously some good news. That was a little bit of a scary thing to have a really nasty storm system move through on Election Day. We want everyone to get out and exercise their civic duty. So anything we're missing, guys, before we wrap up this Facebook Live?
Yeah,
go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
We have reporters all over the area tracking the storms as they start to move their way into northwest Alabama, and we actually have reporter Michael Clark right now in a storm shelter, which is definitely the place to be if you're in northwest Alabama, with some folks there in Hamilton who are seeking shelter there. Michael.
Yeah, Sarah, actually the rain just kind of picked up behind us. It's the first time we've had any rainfall in the last hour or so. Kind of dark here, but Amos, if you can kind of zoom in beyond where we are standing here, there's what looks like a dome structure. That's a below ground storm shelter that is here behind the fire department in downtown Hamilton, which is where we are. There are a couple of folks that are down there. We saw the majority of people across the street, however, that is in a new facility. It's a new storm shelter that residents here say they were able to purchase with some grant money. And so we saw at least 25 people or so within the last hour that have come over there to kind of seek shelter tonight because of this incoming storm. A lot of folks told us that they don't normally do this. They don't normally go to the shelter. We saw some families coming by today after work to checking the conditions of the shelter out, because some of the folks here told us that they have family members that can't get to a below ground basement or a cellar because of some physical disabilities to where they're not able to get downstairs. And so this shelter that they built across the street is an above ground shelter, and so it's a lot easier for folks to access. So they were coming by earlier this afternoon. You always hear, have a plan. So some of these people were definitely doing what officials tell you to do, what our meteorologists always tell you to do, to have a plan, to be prepared. They were looking at, what they needed to bring to the shelter tonight. So many folks, said, okay, there are some charging spots here. So they went home and got a couple of their chargers and flashlights and things that they could bring with them. So they're all kind of hunkered down in the shelter. We're still waiting on this storm to get here. We see and hear the reports from you guys back in the studio about it being in Mississippi, so we know that it's just a matter of time. We're probably about 20 miles or so from the area in Itawamba County where I think we've seen some of the stronger precipitation. Even in the last couple of minutes as we've been standing here, the wind's kind of kicked up just a little bit. It's been kind of inconsistent throughout the evening. We've seen periods of time where it's been really shaking signs and trees and wind chimes and all that kind of stuff that we look for, but there's also been times where it kind of gets eerily quiet. You don't really see a lot of wind activity either. So again, this is the first time we've kind of had any rain at all. It's kind of coming down a little bit heavier now, and I'm looking beyond where we're standing. And Amos, I know you kind of have the ability to zoom and pan. I know there's some light spots there if you kind of can show folks just the precipitation that we're seeing. Not a lot, again, not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill or anything. There's certainly some rain here that's coming in quickly, and there's a lot more behind it. And so that's what our concern is what's coming in from the Mississippi side. And this is just the very first signs of the squall or the storm line that's coming this way. So we'll obviously be keeping our eye on the conditions here from a safe spot in the garage of the fire department here in Hamilton. We're in Marion County. Earlier today we went by the EMA office, that's the Emergency Management Agency, talked with the director there. She's actually kind of at the headquarters over at the sheriff's office. They've got a couple of different things there that they do during this time. They've activated their emergency operations center, and so they're communicating with the National Weather Service out of Birmingham about any damage reports that they may be getting in from other areas, and so they kind of know what's coming in, and they push some of those alerts out to a lot of their residents. So of course we'll continue to talk with some of the officials here as this gets a little bit closer, but for now, reporting live in Hamilton, Michael Clark. We'll send it back to y'all in the studio.
All right, thanks a lot, Michael. He's just one of a few folks that are out and about trying to cover these storms for us. It's a live look in Fayette right now. You can see some of the winds blowing out there. We talked about the wind, very strong out of the south, bringing in a lot of that unstable, very humid air. That'll be the fuel for the storms that we see later on today. Hopefully, this is the only kind of bad scene that we'll have to take a look at from Fayette for this evening. So what we're going to do, it's right around 12:30 or so. I'm going to show you one last look at the squall line that'll be moving through. We're watching a couple of different areas of this line for the possibility of severe weather later on this morning. Tornado watch for the counties that are shaded in yellow for our counties. That's Marion, Winston, Lamar, Fayette, Walker, Blunt, and Coleman. That goes until 6 o'clock this morning. We think the risk there should be done, though, by, say, 3 to 4 a.m. So we'll be watching that very, very closely. And we'll also be talking more about these storms once we get to 1 o'clock. We're going to do a live cut-in on CBS 42 and then another Facebook Live for anyone with questions. If you're hunkering down right now, make sure you got your phone charged. Make sure you've got several different ways to receive weather information. The CBS 42 weather app, the news app is also a great thing. Facebook, we're going to put warnings and whatnot on Facebook, but don't rely on Facebook for all your weather information. Sometimes all the warnings get a little murky. Just make sure you've got several different ways to get a weather alert, basically on your phone, TV, weather radio, those type of things. So throughout the night, that people will be alerted through our channels and hopefully through yours too. And you'll be safe and sound. And let's hope that it's not quite as bad as it has been in some other places. Tupelo, we had some damage reported that's consistent with a tornado. So, and that same storm moving through our northwestern counties, and it will be here in the next half an hour to 45 minutes. So we'll sign off right now. We're going to be back at the top of the hour with a cut-in on CBS 42 and then another Facebook Live directly after that around, I'll say 1:10 or so. Okay, we'll see you then, guys.